Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Purdy Insurance. Visit Purdy Insurance on Market Street in Sunbury or visit online at purdyinsurance.com.
The outstanding Reginald Walker, sir, welcome.
Steve, how are you? Happy Super Bowl
post-mortem
next day.
Yeah.
Post-mortem. There you go.
Yeah. So well, let's go through some of the intricacies of this game that I think probably slipped through the cracks. You know, they always slip through the cracks because everybody always looks at the end of the game. We'll get to the end of the game at the end. Early on, what did you think of the decision on the second series of the game, and it's a Super Bowl, to go for it on fourth down by the Bengals as opposed to maybe playing a little field position early?
It didn't make any sense to me. That was the first thing I said. I was like, why would you – why? I don't understand the reason for this, especially from this standpoint, right? You're the football team that doesn't have the dominant defensive front or offensive line. You're the football team in this game that, for all intents and purposes, you are climbing the mountain, right? You're playing against a team that has, quote-unquote, the boy wonder head coach, the all-star team. They're playing at home, all these things. And so to me, I think what you do in that situation is you play the field position game, to your point, and you force them to make a mistake, and then you pounce, right? That's, as a Bengal Tiger, that's what they would do, right? Mm-hmm. A mistake is made, and they pounce on you. And I just thought it was an uncalculated risk, an unnecessary risk there by Zach Taylor. And to me, and I'm not going to sit here and try to overthink it, but I just think in that situation, you don't need to do that at that point in the game.
I just think that you're still in the probing part of the game, and so it's okay to play a little field position, especially when you open the game with a 3-and-out. Right? So maybe you give yourself a second chance and you get the ball at midfield. Well, now, I mean, they scored a touchdown on that short field. Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, you look at it from that standpoint, and then the added piece of it to that point of them scoring. You just gave an explosive offense with all those weapons a short field.
Yeah.
I've said for years, and I don't care. I'll take this to my grave as a football guy. It is harder to score if you have to go 80 yards than it is if you have to go 50 yards.
Right.
It's just harder. I'm gonna choose the path of most resistance for my opponent.
I keep a stat on my chart, and it's a running stat, and I do it for every team, so it's not just Penn State. Okay? Plus, I call it plus territory. Whenever you take over on the plus side of the field, how many times does it happen during the course of the season? How many touchdowns do you get? How many times do you turn it over? How many times do you punt? How many field goals you get? I mean, the scoring percentage when you get on the plus side of the field for every team, right? The key is keeping the number like with your opponent is you've got 3 times as many more than your opponent does in the season. But the numbers are astronomical. I mean, analytics, I keep analytics. That's a big one.
Yeah, well, I'll add to that. I remember in 2015, the Carolina Panthers 15-1 season.
Yep.
And I'm trying to remember the exact number, but of their scoring drives, particularly off of turnovers, most of those started in plus territory. Yeah. And I believe they scored touchdowns on something like 65% of those drives, and the percentage was about 10% less of touchdowns scored. Yep. When they had to go sort of the length of the field, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a big part of it. Nobody's talking about it today, but to me, that in a game decided by 3, you've got to look at how each thing and each element came about. Now let's get to, before we get to the end of the game, Aaron Donald, who for the first 6 quarters of his Super Bowl life did nothing. He did nothing against the Patriots. First half, he did nothing yesterday. Then he makes the play on the sideline, which was borderline to a penalty. Okay. But then he made a sack that nobody's talking about that made the Bengals kick instead of getting a touchdown. He saved his team 4 points on a 3-point win. I thought that was a huge play that, again, nobody's talking about.
It was a huge play, and I'll add another component as to why that was a big play. Because if you think about it, right, and you give them the 4 points, obviously they would have been like +1 at that point.
Right.
But remember the extra point that was missed
and I've
because of the bad hold.
Yep, I've talked about that in the show already. I said I was really surprised NBC didn't keep revisiting it. They only brought it up with 3 minutes to play. And I was like that. You and I know an extra point miss, and you feel it on the sideline. You felt it on the sideline. It hangs over the game.
It does. And so I think, Aaron Donald, and to that point on that play on the sideline with Burrow, I personally thought it was a clean hit on Burrow, but it was also a message to Burrow. And I think in that moment, for a little while, I saw the Bengals players kind of almost say, okay, now we need to stop getting bullied.
Yeah.
And they kind of fought back for a little bit. They got the big play at the start of the second half, and it started to look like they were going to, okay, here we come. And then Aaron Donald started bullying them again in that second half. And the adjustment that was made by the defense coordinator, Raheem Morris, was excellent. He realized that they were turning the protection to Aaron Rodgers, or to Aaron Donald, I should say.
Yep.
And so he immediately said, okay, I'm going to put someone over the top of the center so you can't turn the protection.
All right. And Raheem Morris deserves another chance as head coach, by the way.
He does.
No question. So now we get to the end of the game. So you get to the end of the game and the 15-play drive. Part of that the play to Cup. Do you remember the Penn State-Michigan game here, 2019? Penn State had a third down and short, and James ran that reverse action to K.J. Hamler to get the first down. That
Absolutely correct.
That was the Cup play on fourth down yesterday. It was the same call.
It was the same exact call. That play,
except it went right and Hamler went left. That's the only difference.
That's the only difference.
Yep.
That's the only difference. I think you'll love this too, right? Beckham goes out. We're probably at this point just watching the game. We're midway third quarter. Sitting directly to my left watching the game, the venerable Marcus Mills.
Oh, jeez.
Congratulations to his family.
Way to go, Marcus. Yes.
His dad is on the way to the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Isn't that – and my goodness, it took too long.
It did. Right. It absolutely did.
It took too long. Oh, it did. I thought Sam Mills was just like – he was a football player.
Yes, in every sense of the word. And so Marcus and I are sitting there, and we both look at each other, and we go, so they're just not going to bracket Cooper Kupp, huh?
Yeah.
We're both DBs, right? So we're looking at this thing going,
right.
So you guys are just going to – because my thought in that moment, and I hate to say it like this, but I was paying attention to everything, and I'm going to make Jefferson beat me while he's thinking about his wife getting ready to go in labor.
She's in labor.
Right.
I don't think they told it. I don't think they told him.
I think they told. Yeah, I don't think they told. But I'm like, this is the guy that's going to have to beat me. There is no way.
Right.
You let the best receiver statistically in football this year beat you.
What does Belichick do?
He's taking that away. And then
Belichick then makes the other guys beat you.
Yes, and I'll tell you what really made me explode. When I looked up on the touchdown to Kupp at the end of the game to seal it, the first thing I said to myself is, not only are you not bracketing Cooper Kupp, but you have your third corner over there.
It's Eli Apple on him. I'm like,
how do you get – I'm like –
I don't know.
You can't, because remember, Awuzie got hurt earlier in the game, but he came back.
Yep.
If Awuzie is back in the game, he's got to be the guy over there.
He's got to be playing.
If you're going to play one-on-one there, it cannot be with Eli Apple. Right. That was unacceptable.
What did you think of the call on Logan Wilson, though? I thought it
was a bad call.
I didn't like it. In a game where you really had not inserted yourself, I felt that was I was like, what are you inserting yourself there for?
Well, that, and I think the other problem I had with it was the actual call.
Yeah, the call was not right.
Because, and what I mean by that, if they would have said illegal contact, I could have accepted it. Because he did touch him, and they were beyond 5 yards. Because that's what that rule is.
Yeah.
But to say he held him, which would mean he grabbed him and gained an advantage, that's incorrect. And that was my issue was, I always listen to the application of how they use the rules.
Yeah.
And to me, again, I don't think it should have been any call there.
Right.
But if you're going to call anything,
just like Ramsey on Boyd in the end zone earlier in the game, he grabbed him on the play by the shirt. They didn't call him. Like, okay, I'm not worried about that.
Exactly. And so I thought, and there was a couple of plays on that last drive. I remember in particular, I think the Rams were around. It was the play. It was the look away pass where they hit Cooper Kupp.
Mm-hmm.
The right tackle should have been called for a false start there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Exactly. That's what struck me. I was surprised that wasn't called.
I don't know how they missed that.
Yeah, I don't know either.
And so as you look at the last drive, there were calls that everybody was impacted by, and
right.
I think, to me, for a game that was, I thought, well officiated.
I agree.
Until really about the last 6 minutes.
Yep, I do too.
And it fell apart, and I'm going. And one of my buddies texted me and he said, well, I guess at some point we knew the referees would show up. Here they are.
Yeah, they finally the cab pulled in. We got some other guys here. Great. Which then brings me to the Bengals' last foray, trying to somehow at least get a field goal to get the thing to overtime. Mm-hmm. Okay. Greg Gaines. I just want to mention that Greg Gaines actually is the one that on the tackle that Donald got all the credit for. Greg Gaines made a gigantic play there. Okay, ladies and gentlemen,
he is the other guy.
Okay, the other guy that never got mentioned. He never even got mentioned. Like
he made that play.
Like, come on. I know he's the star. He's the focal point of the production meeting. I got it. But like other people help make plays too. All right. So and Donald made a great play on that play. I'm not taking anything away from them, but to give the other guy credit too. But why is P. Ryan carrying the ball?
Well, here's what
you can outthink yourself. You got Mixon. If you want to throw it, you can play action to him. It's more effective, isn't it?
That's right. No, you're right. So I'll say a couple of things about that play. You're right. First of all, let's talk about the defensive front, right? And I've always been taught this and understood this about football. If you do your job and don't make the tackle, but you're where you're supposed to be, oftentimes you're the one making the play, not the tackle.
Right.
That's what Gaines did on that particular play. He made the play.
Yep.
And Aaron Donald made the tackle.
Well, no, Gaines made the tackle too.
Well, Gaines was, he got a piece of the tackle.
I mean, Gaines got. You watch. I kept looking at the replay, and I'm like,
Gaines was in the hole. He was sitting in the hole.
Yeah, but I could see the other guy with his arms wrapped around him underneath. I'm thinking, whose arms are those? Seriously, right? And then when they went up top, I think Gaines actually hits him first. And and it's like, and again, this is a great play. I'm just saying a guy got no credit for making his part of the play. That's all I'm saying.
I agree. And right before that play, I did say on third down, I said they can run it here because they had timeouts in their I didn't have a problem with the play call. I had a problem with who they handed the ball to your point.
Yeah.
And then the second piece of it is understanding situations, right?
Yep.
So on fourth down, you had to know you needed to max protect.
Yes.
Because everybody knew you just tried to run it on third down, so you're not going to do it on fourth down.
Yep.
And to add to that, I think the other mistake the Bengals made, they did it twice in the game. May have been 3 times. No, they did it twice. They brought the extra lineman in twice during the game.
Yep.
And they got 9 yards on one of them and 13 yards on the other one. And they never went back to it.
That's the Patriots play that the Patriots used in the Super Bowl against the Rams 4 years ago.
That's right.
All right.
And they never went back to it. And I'm going, it's okay. You don't have to risk Joe Burrow getting sacked 7 times.
And Donald makes a phenomenal play on that play. Phenomenal.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
Phenomenal play. That is it'll be shown on Super Bowl highlights for years and years as one of the great plays by a defensive player in the Super Bowl. I mean, it's a great play.
The normal game angle of that, yes. The high end zone angle, no one's going to show you because Jalen Ramsey was on the ground and Jamar Chase was running up the sideline wide open.
I know.
But again, that goes back to if you can protect, you can do certain things. The other piece I'll say is of those sacks, I don't want to take anything away from the Rams and their pass rush, but a couple of those were on Joe Burrow because he went Patrick Mahomes on him and tried to sit on the big play and ended up eating it because it wasn't there, and he should have gotten rid of the ball a couple of times.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
Give credit on both sides of that, but it was one of those games. I will say this, for the NFL, the last 7 games of the season, not including the Pro Bowl because I wasn't a game. 6 of those games were decided by 3 points.
Yep.
And the 7th was decided by 6 with an overtime touchdown.
Overtime touchdown.
Not a bad way to end the year.
Well, let me put it this way. That's what makes them the printing press.
That's exactly right.
My friend, always a pleasure. We will talk soon.
Yes, sir. Sounds great. I will, at the very least, we'll definitely talk by Blue White Weekend.
Oh, believe me, this guy can talk basketball too, so we'll get him back. All right. He knows his hoops. Thanks, Reginald. Appreciate it.
Take care. Thanks, Steve.